Hey everyone. Today we're going to be looking at the recitatives from Handel's Messiah. Uh, just so you know, so it doesn't catch you off guard, I shorten recitatives to recit. It's pretty standard. And it's shorter and easier to say. So, a recit is a speech like style of singing used in operas, oratorios, and cantatas which follows inflections of the text, resulting in rhythmic flexibility. Recitative is usually used to advance the plot or storyline, and it moves through text pretty quickly. So we're going to start out with looking at the recit called There Were Shepherds, or these are at least the beginning lyrics of this recit. The type of recitative, and there are types of recits, is Recitativo SECCO. So what does that mean? Recitativo secco is Italian for dry recitative. It's speech-like. It's this declamatory style of singing which is supported only by continuo. So just continuo, no one else. Now, recitativo secco is employed in the opera, oratorio, and cantata genres. So like I said, the type here is recitativo secco. The key is C major. We don't have tempo indicated to us, which is okay. And our meter is common time. Here's our lyrics. There were shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flocks by night. Now I have to apologize because I just couldn't find a decent recording with the score, so I have a more standard video here for you to watch. Hopefully it's not too much of a problem since these are just such short excerpts. So keep this link open that I have in the description for you, and your timestamp for any given excerpt is in the top left of the screen. Now, looking here, and we'll just go over this fairly quickly and try to help you discern what is recitativo secco versus the next kind of recit that we're going to look at. We have, on our top line, we have soprano, pretty standard, okay? And then, in our bass line, we have just this long, drawn-out C with some figured bass notated, and I've marked those out in those red boxes there. So, as hopefully you've started to become a bit more familiar with now, whenever you see a bass line that has some figured bass on the bottom, it's a pretty solid indication, especially when we're talking about the Baroque era, that this is continuo. So, soprano plus continuo, it's this dry sort of recitative, which we call recitativo secco. Our next recit, and Lo, the Angel of the Lord, is a different kind of recitative, and it's recitativo accompagnato. This just means accompanied recit. It's also speech-like. It's also this declamatory style of singing. But unlike secco, which just is voice plus continuo, this is voice plus instrumental ensemble or orchestra. Now, accompagnato here is employed also in opera, oratorio, and cantata genres, and it allows for this greater connection with the text than might ordinarily be conveyed with recitativo secco. So we're looking for trying to convey the text in a more meaningful musical manner rather than, and I'm generalizing here, but with secco you can just sort of push through a lot of text very quickly. Our key here is F major. Our tempo is actually andante. So that's slightly different than the previous recit. If you haven't noticed by now, all of these recits just run one right into the next. So whereas in the previous recit we didn't have a tempo, here we do have a clear one. It's andante, and we have the same meter, common time. Our libretto reads, "And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them, and they were sore afraid." This is what it looks like. So take a pause, listen to the excerpt, it's super short, and then come back. Now, we have this example of word painting here. And this is where sort of recitativo accompagnato really comes into its own, because it's not just like, oh, we're going to have a soprano sing and and the continuous changing chords now. And now. Like, it's there's more interaction between the music and the text. The text being evoked by the soprano in this case, and there's this greater underlying musical substance which the orchestra conveys. Here we have just a piano reduction, but this is full orchestra. So yeah, we have this great example of word painting here. And word painting, or musical pictorialization, is music which mirrors the literal meaning of the words. This can be achieved through melody, harmony, or rhythm. So in this case here, we have the 16th note figure, this little ascending pattern that just keeps repeating. It's piano, it's soft, it's almost fluttering, maybe a bit nervous. And just looking back at our lyrics here, our libretto, the angel of the Lord came upon them, so about the shepherds, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them, and here's the key line, and they were sore afraid. So, word painting, we're trying to mirror the literal meaning of the words. So this repeating figure, this ascending, quiet, pulsating figure, might suggest that these shepherds are trembling from this frightful, though extraordinary event. Now this is our next recit, and the angel said unto them. This is another example of SECCO. Now, what gets really interesting here is, it's nothing to do with the piece, it's about the RCM. They write in their textbook that the key for this recit begins in D major. That's wrong. That's just entirely incorrect. It's A major. I have no idea how that got through the publishing process, but that's a pretty big blunder. I am slightly concerned about if you write an exam and you write, okay, well, the key begins in A major. You're correct. But is the exam marker just going to be marking against a book which is wrong? So you have a couple options here. You can write, the key actually begins in A major. However, the Celebrate Theory / History 9 textbook says that it begins in D major, but this is erroneous. You can just write something in like that. That's probably what I would do. It could be a bit contentious. This is a bit of a no-win situation here, and I don't really know. I truly don't know how this got through publishing. Our tempo isn't indicated, and I think this is hopefully you're starting to grab onto this idea that SECCO, the tempo isn't indicated. We have these sort of rough areas where chords are changing in the continuo, but it's not this sort of strict, like, the orchestra has to go like in this exacting tempo to make sure that they line up perfectly with the singer. With SECCO, there's not as many moving parts as in Accompagnato. So that's perhaps why there's no need to have a tempo indication. But also I think that with SECCO, because it's this dry sort of recit, we're looking more to imitate speech. If Handel gave a tempo marking to a singer for a SECCO recit, they wouldn't be given the freedom to do that imitation of speech. It might sound a bit unnatural, and I mean, there's some larger philosophical questions here about, like, well, this entire thing is a bit unnatural. Like, you're having people sing an entire story, so why even bother trying to be speech-like? I don't really know. I think there are some interesting conversations we could have about that, but for the purposes of this exam, it's not too much of a big deal. Meter has stayed the same. And our libretto here. And the angel said unto them, Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord. There's not too much necessity to talk about this in too great of a detail. Please stop, as usual, listen through the excerpt. Okay, now we can see here again, it's pretty apparent that this is Recitativo secco. We have a single voice line, we have a bass line. There's no figured bass, but that's okay. It's apparent that it's continuo. Our final one here is and suddenly. This is accompagnato. This one does actually begin in D major. Interestingly, the tempo isn't indicated with this one. So not necessarily following the pattern that we had previously discussed here. However, I'd like to suggest that there was no need to indicate a tempo here, because I think Handel credited his musicians with enough intelligence that you'd know, well, this is an entire... This piece here is one big, long recit, as you've sort of seen, and we're looking at small excerpts. The tempo indication from the previous Recitativo accompagnato, given that we're also working with, as we'll see, we're working with 16th figurations, it would make sense to go at a similar tempo. Our meter here has, again, not changed. And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host praising God and saying, and this will move into Gloria, which we'll talk about next time. And here we get, again, more word painting. So in our red box here, we have this dotted rhythm, which I think musically depicts how suddenly, how unexpectedly these angels appeared. We also get this fluttering figuration in the accompaniment, which I put into this blue box, which might just be seen as the fluttering of angels' wings. Now, I hope that was a fairly straightforward lecture. We discussed Recitativo secco and how it differs from its counterpart, Recitativo accompagnato, but they aren't truly separate. They're two sides of the same recitative coin, and they can, as we saw, actually fit together quite well, and you can go back and forth between these different styles to create one larger recit. We'll see you next time to finish off the Messiah. Thank you.